my life. All my life. Thank you. Thank all of you, really, because a lot of you helped me get here. You all worked on my movies. This is my community. This is our theater. What I am. Welcome to Sin City, man. These are the old days, the bad days, the all or nothing days. They're back. Who's seen the movie for the first time? Raise your hand, just so I know who's here. Ooh, you're in for a treat. Now, who saw this at the premiere 20 years ago here? All right, you're on the Blu-ray and the DVD. Did you know that? Because I recorded the audience that night and put it on as an extra track so that anyone at home can listen to this crowd, because this is the best fucking audience in the world. Tonight's gonna be awesome because this is an insane movie, both on screen and behind the scenes. I mean, El Mariachi was probably my first renegade movie, you know, no crew, no money, revolutionary for its time, and I think Dusk Till Dawn was considered my next big renegade movie. That was something you just didn't do. You didn't just cut a movie in half and have robbers in one half and vampires in the other. It was a very gonzo, bizarro movie. But by far, the most rebellious movie I've ever made, breaking all the rules of both content and Hollywood tradition, is Sin City. It's based on graphic novels that were never meant to be made into a movie. So for you first-timers, there were a series of comics in the 90s called Sin City by legendary artist and writer Frank Miller. Favorite such comics as Dark Knight Returns, 300. He also tried working in Hollywood for a stint as a screenwriter for a few years, and he was so burned out by the system and lack of control that he went back to New York and created Sin City just for himself, doing anything he wanted, breaking all sorts of taboos, knowing that no one could mess with it or with him. Total creative freedom. He basically drew the anti-movie, something that could never be made into a movie. Then I come along and go, hey, this would make a great movie. Because the rights weren't even for sale. He held on to them. So unlike most people who create comics, he didn't sell the rights. He didn't want anybody to touch it. He knew that would ruin it. Because these were graphic novels. So you're going to watch this movie and think, you couldn't get away with a lot of this today. But actually, we couldn't get away with this back then either. It was 20 years ago, and in fact, I was totally surprised the movie was even a hit. I fully expected it to be rejected initially at the theater, and only discovered on video or late night cable later, and that would have been fine with me. I just wanted to make it and see those novels come to life. Because back then, most of my movies performed that way. You know, movies like Desperado and Dusk Till Dawn, you know, you like them, but their entire box office was less than what Sin City made in its first weekend. Wow. I was really surprised. So the idea, how I got the idea to do it, was back in 2003, Spy Kids 3D and Once Upon a Time in Mexico were released within months of each other. They were only 2 months apart. Both were my final films and 2 original trilogies of mine. So I was kind of out of material. And that was a very rare occurrence, probably the first time that ever happened in cinema history. Both movies were #1 movies, and so I was supercharged to go make my next thing, and I was trying to figure out what the next project would be, because I was also doing my own production design and cinematography, so I wanted something really challenging. And I had this huge collection of Sin City books, because anytime I go to the store, I pick up a Sin City book and buy it, and I go home and found I already had 3 copies of the same book. I just kept buying it over and over. I was a big fan of film noir in general, those movies from the 40s and 50s, which seem really tame now, but in the day they were really shocking. What I liked about the graphic novels of Sin City is that they were not nostalgic at all. It was postmodern noir, something that felt really new and extremely savage, something that would still shock and surprise people. But since they were all love stories, I thought it would retain sort of a dark romance. And the visual style, first and foremost, was beyond anything cinema was even attempting. So I thought, when I was looking for my new project, I thumbed through my old Sin City books and went, oh my God, I know how to make this now. I had just done an all green screen movie with Spy Kids 3, and I realized that I could use that groundbreaking technology to create something that would look like the book. So just like Frank's books stand out from all other comics on the stands, I knew that if we turned the movie like that, it would stand out from all other movies. But I also knew in order to convince someone like Frank Miller to give his book to me and trust me with a film and not ruin it, I had to show him a proof of concept, something to blow his mind and prove my point. So I shot a simple proof of concept here at Austin in my studio, It was just me on my camera, different crew and friends, my sister Patricia, who played several roles in the film too, the final film. And I did a black and white treatment on it, and it looks stunning, and Frank drawings coming to life. And this was only a few months after my other two movies came out, so I flew to New York, showed Frank Miller my test, and he was astounded. And my pitch was to be super faithful to his book. Instead of adapting it, like Hollywood does, into a movie, I wanted to use the latest technology to translate movies into a living graphic novel. He was excited for maybe 2 minutes, and then the hellacious Hollywood process he experienced already came back to mind, and he said, oh no, but then we have to write a script, and then a Hollywood studio will give us stupid notes, and then it'll be a long drawn out process and watered down. I said, no, that's not how it's gonna work. This is Texas, man. Sure, in Hollywood, yeah, they make you take all the risk in Hollywood. Sign over your rights first, and then you sit and watch them slowly but surely destroy your art. Instead, I'll take all the risk. Let me earn your trust. Don't sign over the rights yet. I have my own studio down in Austin, far away from the reaches of Hollywood. I'll write the script myself. It'll be easy and fast, because I'll just transcribe my 3 favorite stories right out of your books, and then I'll edit them down to length. And then it's November now, when I was meeting him. I'll have the script to you by next month. Then in January, in just a month and a half, we will film the opening sequence of the movie as a test, using a couple of actor friends of mine. I'll edit it, I'll do the music, the effects, the whole opening sequence, even some fake titles, so we can pretend like we're watching the movie. If you don't love the opening scene, keep it as a cool short film. You can show your friends, and I'll disappear like Batman. No obligation, no risk to you. I like to make things as easy as possible, so someone has to say yes. He said okay because I'm not making him commit to making a film, just to commit to a process, my process, where he didn't have to do anything but wait and see if I was telling the truth or not. I did what I said. I finished the script in December. By the beginning of January, I filmed the opening scene. I flew him down, along with Josh Hartnett and Marley Shelton. Beginning of film, after seeing my whole crazy setup there, my green screen, nobody was making movies like that, by the way, back then. Green screen was unheard of, digital, even more unheard of. He worked with the actors for just a few minutes, and he was already saying, okay, this is amazing. Let's make the movie, I'm on board. I was like, no, wait, let's do what I said. Let's finish this opening sequence, do the whole test, make sure we really love it. So we finish it, the whole opening you're about to see. And I even had a title sequence. Now, there were fake titles at the time, but I just put the names of our dream cast in it, because that's how manifesting happens. So then we did the rights deal so we could make the movie. A few weeks later, we were in LA to meet with Bruce Willis and Mickey Rourke. Bruce was filming a movie, so I had to go through Bruce's producer agent guy first to sort of vet the project before bothering Bruce with it. This is a good story. Bruce won't mind me telling it because he likes it too. So we meet his old school Hollywood producer agent. Frank and I get to this guy's office to show him the book and the short film. And he starts with, it's not my job, but the water's over there. And so I was like, oh geez, Frank's gonna puke any second here. This vibe is already everything he hates about Hollywood. So I started my pitch to the producer agent and said, this is Frank Miller. He's our greatest comic artist. He created masterworks like Dark Knight Returns. He created Sin City in response to a hellacious time he had writing some screenplays in Hollywood and getting really screwed around. Now his work was messed with a lot, and the agent just raised his arms and said, welcome to Hollywood. Like that's just usual business there. And I said, yeah, well, I'm in the view that an artist doesn't need to get screwed around. So I proved to Frank that I would handle his work with care and respect by filming the opening scene of the movie on spec without having the rights. I flew Josh Hartnett and Marley down, we filmed it, I did the special effects and music, and now we have a cool short sequence that we can show you and Bruce Willis to see if he's interested in the movie. And the agent looked at me like I was a lunatic doing everything wrong and leaned in super dramatically over his table. It was perfect setup. And he said, wait a minute, you're saying you hired the actors, you flew them in, you filmed part of the movie, did all the effects, and you didn't have the rights? And I leaned in wearing my cowboy hat and I said, welcome to Texas. Frank really spit out his water. That guy's monkeys that were sitting around him were trying to hold in their laughter. It was beautiful. So I showed him the opening sequence and he went, all right, you can show it to Bruce. So I go to show it to Bruce. He's already blown away by the book and the opening scene. And then the fake credits come on. And guess whose name is the first to pop on? I was like, hey, Bruce, your name's already in the credits. You gotta come. Holy shit, man, this is unbelievable. I did. Frank could not believe things were moving so fast. To remove any doubt, this is not how movies are put together. This is by far the fastest a movie's ever been put together, especially a big effects movie. I met Frank in November, wrote it in December, did the test in January. Here at the end of January, we're showing it to Bruce. He's already on, so is Mickey Rourke. We're gonna start shooting in March. There were so many gunslinger moves I had to do in order to get this movie made. It was extremely gratifying and validating for the audiences at the time, especially comic book fans, to call it the most faithful adaptation of a comic graphic novel ever made. For instance, I wanted to be filming by March, which was just a month later, which was crazy. Not only did I have my son Rogue being born in March, I was also in LA because while all this Sin City stuff was happening, I was doing the script and the test and all that. I was also writing and recording the score for Kill Bill 2 for Quentin for $1. So I actually just finished recording the orchestra the night my son was born. I had to fly back to Austin right away to film Sin City, the actual movie, there just a few weeks later. And I know this all sounds crazy now, but it must have worked because here we are. By this point, I had already asked Frank if he ever wanted to direct one of his stories. And he said, I thought about doing Big Fat Kill once as a short film. I said, oh, you should direct that one. You're gonna love it, Frank. It's just like drawing, because I know, because I started as a cartoonist, and it's all just visual storytelling. You feel like you weren't trained as a director, but you have been directing. And I said, no, man, you know what, you should just direct the whole movie with me, because you're gonna be there anyway, and I'm shooting it right out of your book. I wanted to match the book. It's only fair that you direct it with me. We'll have such a blast. He thought about conflicts he had in Hollywood, and he said, okay, you know, I think we'll have arguments, but they'll be good arguments. I said, Frank, we'll never argue. We're the same guy. Why would we argue with ourselves? We never did have a fight. We'll be having so much fun together, Frank, making this dream come to life. And he said, yes. We're now a week away from filming, and the shit hits the fan. The Directors Guild of America, which represents film directors, or is supposed to, calls me from Hollywood and says, Robert, you know very well you can't have 2 directors on a movie. It's against our rules. Rules? Where's that written? In our rule book. You know that's a rule. No, I don't. Who sits around reading a rule book? It's the size of a phone book. These guys are always giving me shit. They gave me shit on Once Upon a Time Mexico because I did so many jobs in that movie. I tried to just group all my jobs together in one title so you didn't see my name popping up every 2 seconds. And they called me on that and they said, no, they wanted me to have the director credit on a separate card from those other lowly positions. They wanted it to be, the director. And so I said, people are gonna think I did that on my own. And they're like, well, that's just our rules. So I gave them their way, but this time what they're asking seemed crazy. What do you mean I can't have 2 directors? I see 2 directors all the time. The Wachowskis, the Coens, the list goes on. No, it specifically states you have to be a bona fide team before you join the guild. Frank's a first-time director, and you're not a bona fide team. And we don't want the Directors Guild to turn into the Producers Guild or the Writers Guild, where there's all these names up on the screen. One movie, one director, even if that's not the reality. What? I said, yeah, you can both direct if you want. But we only want one name listed as the director on any credits. That's the rules per DGA. So Frank directs better than most of you. He's just been using a pen instead of a camera. I said, well, that's your opinion, but if you want to make the movie that way, you should resign from the guild. Which, of course, he knows I won't do because there's repercussions to that. No insurance, no residuals, no chance for any award considerations, since they're the ones who do all the nominating for directors. I hate when people from out there try and tell us what to do over here. They won't help you find a job, but they're quick to take one away from you, really. So I went to Frank and said, okay, the DGA and all their wisdom won't let us make the movie the way we want. We can still direct together, but they're saying only one of us can get credited as a director. So I told Frank, how about you take the directing credit, and I'll just take the producing credit. And Frank, who looked like someone that had already been kicking out over our sandcastle, said, that doesn't seem very fair. I said, I know, but either that or I have to quit the guild entirely out of curiosity. What would you do, Frank? Frank thought for a second and he said, on my tombstone it'll say, does not play well with other kids. I said, okay, same here, let's do it. So I called the DJ, I'm making my movie my way, I can resign. So you don't have to change your rules, and I don't have to change how I want to make this movie. I'll resign quietly so no one needs to know. I'm way over here anyway, nobody cares. We're going full Texas on this one, baby. They were stunned. So what did they do? Instead of keeping it quiet, they leaked my resignation to the press, tried and sabotage the movie so that no actors would sign on. And it backfired big time. Turns out, everyone loved the story that I quit the guild over this, for it showed that I stood for artists' rights and they didn't. Suddenly, a flood of actors wanted to be in the movie, more than we had roles for. Of course actors are gonna love this idea. They're all romantics. They're rooting for the underdog production, the runaway train of creativity, for the off-the-rails, cutting-edge technology production. So now it's no longer under Directors Guild jurisdiction. It means we can do whatever the hell we want. So you're about to see the craziest credit sequence in the movie history. Because now all the posters and trailers and credits say directed by Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. I even made up a whole new directing title that people think is the real title now. Special Guest Director Quentin Tarantino. Makes me laugh to think of all the times the director asked permission to have a special guest director credit like my movie. And it seemed legit because it was a big movie. I wanted to have them say, that's not an official DJing movie, that's a title that Rodriguez guy made up back in Texas. He just made that shit up. It's just the biggest renegade movie ever made. They got beat up over that debacle for years. Suddenly my name, Troublemaker Studios, took on a whole new meaning. We weren't trying to cause trouble. Trouble just came looking for us. For my editing and cinematography credit, I just made up a whole new thing there too. Might as well, why not? You just have to see what it says. It's just like a gunslinger all the way. All bets were off. The movie became the Wild West of rule breaking and setting tradition on fire. So stick around after the movie for some really fun behind the scenes stories. And our special guest, fellow Texan, Alexis Bledel.